Hey, what's up, Ron here. Did you know that watercolor realism can be quite easy to achieve? Well, today I want to share with you a way that basically guarantees you'll get a realistic result every single time. By the end of this video, you should be able to achieve that even if you're sloppy. But in any case, let me show you how I do this. So real quick, this is what I do in Photoshop. I open up the picture and then I go to Image, Mode, Grayscale. And that turns it black and white. Then I go to Image, Adjustments, Posterize. That's the option. And what it does is it takes all the values and it reduces them to fewer values. So if we go down all the way to 2, you get black and white. If we go to 3, you get black, white, and a gray. I found the ideal one is going to be number 4. It allows a bit more distinction between the shapes. It's totally up to you though. Notice what happens to the sky. The sky is a gradual transition from dark to light. The software has to interpret it in some way, and the way it interprets it is with 2 values. It's up to you if you want to paint it as a smooth wash top to bottom, if you want to paint it as one flat wash that's lighter, that's darker. Up to you. I can go ahead and start painting in the values. I'm holding the paper in my hand freely. That way I can pretty much control the direction of the paint, how it moves, what it does, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start here strong. It may look too strong. It's right now too weak. Actually, if you've been doing this for a while, you know watercolor tends to dry much, much lighter, and it's a very common illusion to think you're dark enough. Now, this is a large wash. It's going to define a major chunk of this painting. You're going to see as we move forward. Now, I promised, even if you're sloppy, so let me show you. I'm going to use quite a sloppy, I don't know if you want to call it technique here, but it's going to get us a nice result. Okay, so my brush work isn't going to be the best. In fact, I kind of like the idea of this being a little looser as a painting. So let's see what we get here. Now, as we move down, I very gradually allow more water to get into my wash. And you can see it here. Sorry, my chair is creaking. And you see it gets a little bit, I'm not going back with very strong paint here to make it very impactful. What I do want to make sure I have right now is a baseline of a strong enough value to create a contrast with, again, this beautiful tower, this picture we took again in Morocco. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, I really enjoyed the city views and nature as well there. It's quite an interesting vacation and saw a lot of cool places. So here we go. It was years ago. Now I want to share with you one more thing here. It's quite interesting. So remember how I told you, it's not necessarily, oops, touch the paint. It's not necessarily gonna make your style come out or make it more like your own. What you'll have to do is kind of put on it whatever you want your style to be. And let me show you a live example of that. So to me, I really like to take advantage of areas that are still wet and continue working on them. So for example, this entire right side of the tower, let's be bold and start shading it by actually almost connecting it with the sky. So what you'll see here, and I know it looks strong, it may be too strong, we'll see once it dries, but you see I can just go ahead and connect it and almost ignore all the details, which is something I love doing. You can ignore the details and kind of paint the lightest layer. Now, there was a highlight there that I kind of missed, but that's fine. And this goes all the way down to these lovely arches. Again, I'm not gonna go too detailed here. It's gonna be quite a basic painting in a way. So this, for example, also is dark, right? I love finding these connections. It's something I really enjoy doing. And if I can connect the shape, I will. So what's another connection we can make? And I love the moody sky. Already we have something very interesting. What's one thing we can also connect here? I would say the dark rooftops here that are just, it's not a dark rooftop, it's a cast shadow that's cast by the tower. So there we go. And we have the shape defined because we did the sketch based on the edited photo that is quite basic, right? It's a basic photo because we made it basic. And look at this. This to me is a part of what makes it my own, right? What I mentioned earlier. I really enjoy making these connections, and it's kind of becoming another recognizable feat of how I like painting. By the way, I want to take this opportunity to really thank everyone, because you've been watching the videos. I've been getting a lot of views in the recent uploads, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, and I hope to continue creating lessons that will resonate with you, because it seems like the last couple of ones have. And don't get it wrong, the reason they have, a big part of it is I did a lot of research. I'm slowly upgrading my YouTube game, and hopefully that does show through in the results. Now I want to show you something interesting here. Because we're using a very basic paint the values you see approach, and we have 4 values here, one thing you can do is just paint all the darks while you're at it. So while I'm at it, I'm working on this wash, I just recognize all the darkest darks. I already have this almost black, kind of black paint on my brush, so why not just paint everything I see that matches that? So you'll see, this is, for example, there's a dark line there, and then this doorway, somewhere in the background, there's this architectural detail, a lot of people. This is your time to simply paint the things you're seeing. And it's so freeing painting this way. There's something to be said about, okay, it is a method, like it is a process, which I don't often do. I like to paint very spontaneously. I don't know exactly what I'll paint next whenever I work on my big, more detailed, more polished paintings. This is actually it, because it sets you free from a lot of things. All you have to do is kind of look at the values and squint your eyes a bit maybe, and just see where they are and place them in and kind of let it do its thing, which I find very freeing, right? So here we go. A few of these details. Now let's switch gears here and find the mid values. So some of the values we skipped that are lighter because we went straight into the darks. And look at the sky, it dried perfectly, just how I wanted it. So here, for example, I didn't even draw it, but you don't need to because you can see it. There's this beautiful kind of light value. I really hope you don't hear my chair creaking. My stool, rather. It's a stool. I find it more comfortable to paint like this. There is a cast shadow here that might need to get darker later on, but that's fine. There's the shadow that for this building, it just continues downwards. This is a very important one. So this, this set of arches reaches here. Then there are 2 of these lovely details, but then it casts shadow onto the building at the back. And this is filling in the blanks, right? It's starting to make it pop, make it look 3-dimensional, which is really something I enjoy doing. These arches also on them have some details that make them a mid value. And again, set yourself free from what it is you're painting. We are painting shapes. This is the beautiful part about painting this way, is you really set yourself free from the what. And I find that there's something very satisfying in doing that, and something that is very painterly, something that's very different from illustration. And if you are really into the more painterly style, you might have found yourself in the past struggling even, because everything you paint feels a little stale and a little too rigid and really boring. A big part of that feeling comes from the need to illustrate and paint every single detail. Set yourself free of that need. If it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve you. And I'm perfectly fine if it does. For some people, that's how you enjoy painting. By the way, let's get the ground here. You see the ground is not white. So we can get this kind of a shape, a dark shape, but then as it moves closer towards us, the pattern becomes more visible and we can actually maybe place it in a bit more, right? There's a lot of ways of doing it. Again, this is where your own style and your own signature comes into play. I would just kind of use a lot of random abstract shapes like so. And you see it starts to bring the ground, make it appear almost, right? But this kind of mid value was quite important for getting the impression. While it's still wet, I could go ahead and plop some people in there in the far distant areas. Put a few shadows under the arches. And to me, this has reached the proper level of development almost that I'm looking for. Meaning that now I can just bring out a few details from this tower and call it a day. Like, I really like the result. There's a few details that I could add, but overall I did my job here is done when it comes to just the overall composition. And make no mistake, it is often the overall composition that makes something look good, not the small details. With that said, when we are interested in a certain area or a certain detail, it definitely cannot hurt to develop it and add more details to it. So what I'm seeing here, this is cool. These rounded shapes up at the top, they do have a coarse shadow, so you'll see it here. I'm going to add a very thin strip of slightly darker paint to the middle of these ball-shaped objects. And then from here I can start developing the darker shadows within the shadow. And let's see if it's dry. I think it should be dry enough. So again, I'm going to, even if you're sloppy, look at how simple it is to just start developing, touch the paint again probably, to just start developing the shapes you see. As long as the overall pattern is preserved and kind of feels somewhat loyal to the source, you'll do fine. Again, this is when you set yourself free of what it is that I'm painting. You simply enjoy painting, and already we have a realistic result on paper. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if you've been very close to the picture, but just take a few steps back and come back and you will see. This looks quite realistic, even with my very sloppy brush work. I love all of these architectural details. I actually ended up getting a message from a viewer in Morocco. I don't remember the city, probably Marrakesh or Casablanca. And I just didn't get the chance to meet them. I saw the message later on that day because I didn't have a connection. And they were like, yeah, I was really close by, man. If I knew you were there, I'd come say hi. So it's a shame. But yeah, it was such a nice vacation. Oh, I missed the rooftop there, you see. So this is a big one, right? This is a big detail. It helps us frame the tower also, something like this. And of course, you know, you can start adding mid-values too here and there. But I think the main area we're going to work on is this. And look at how I simplify these details, just like so. As long as you have relatively straight lines, it's going to read okay. We have this beautiful balcony here that I missed the highlight. I needed to leave it. Remember, I told you earlier, and I kind of skipped it accidentally. So let's add the cast shadow, like so. And what you'll see me do now is, in a second, I'm going to add the highlight that justifies this cast shadow. We're going to use just a designer's wash, very simple stuff. I'm going to grab a small brush and I'm going to repaint, re-add the highlight. I'm not going to go over everything and start adding. I'll just add a couple of them. But this main balcony is the reason I'm even doing this to begin with. Because, you know, it looks good. I don't mess with it if it looks good. The overall impression, that is. So we're going to add this light to justify the cast shadow. Hopefully that makes sense. Made it pop, right? This looks really good. Then we'll add this tip of the tower like so, because it is quite visible. And I think we could just get away with maybe this here up top, this here on the left side. I don't see any major highlights we need to add. There's a couple of sparkles in the sky that could be birds, could be whatever. We chose to interpret the top of the sky starting dark, going a little lighter, because again of the nature of a posterized photo where it has to interpret the values it sees, and sometimes the value changes. So that's when your own touch does come into play. And I think honestly with that, this painting is done, and I would say it turned out much better than I expected from a relatively quicker process. I might just put this up for auction. I really like how it turned out. Maybe try and sell it. Let's see. Just a couple of smaller touches here and there. I think even though I signed it, you know how I like to always, after I signed, add a couple of details here and there. There we go. I'm gonna squint my eyes, see if I missed anything. It doesn't appear that way. I think we're good. Now, of course, this isn't like a perfect result. You could go into so many more smaller details if you choose to. But the overall idea is Make the photo simple for you, for yourself to paint. Then you get to see things more clearly, and because you get to see them more clearly, you get to paint them. And then your personal touch comes into play, and you get the chance, the opportunity to maybe make it your own in some ways. I really hope you found this one useful. If you want to support my work and you want to learn how to achieve this level of realism, check out my Watercolor Realism course. It discusses exactly that. It's going to give you a foolproof system. This is a taste of what I'm teaching there. It's going to give you a foolproof system of how to always achieve realism. Now, if you're struggling more with looseness, check out the frustration-free Watercolor course. Make this the year you take control of watercolor by actually giving up a lot of the control. Funny enough, check out my book on Amazon, Painting a Masterpiece. If you just want watercolor inspiration, I think you'll find it really fun to flip through. You can own more than 100 of my paintings in book form. Pretty high quality, I think. The book looks good. I'll put links to everything in the description box below. I want to lastly thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. If you want to receive access to some exclusive processes, and if you want to receive credits at the end of the videos, this is how you get it. Thank you so much to everyone who supports me there, and also to anyone who watches here, comments, likes, whatever. I really appreciate it. We'll see you in the next vid. Take care.